Okay, my name is Paul Norrington. I'm a resident of North Lawndale all of my life. You guys stay here. And we are, of course, we're celebrating North Lawndale Sesquicentennial. And tonight we're doing the youth of North Lawndale. And we're fortunate, very fortunate, because we're celebrating 150 years. We wanted to go back as far as possible. And thanks to Bobbie Steele, we were introduced to a woman who was a teenager in North Lawndale back in the 30s and 40s. So now we're going to have Rose Meyer come up and give us her story.
Well, I don't know if I like meeting my friend Paul or don't like now that he has put me on the spot. But he has brought up many, many memories I have of coming to Lawndale. Lawndale has been my home. I was born in New York, and I came here when I was 8 years old. Now that's a long time ago, probably in the 1930s at some point. I'm going to be 94, so I know I'm the oldest person here. And when I came here, we got our first apartment not too far from here. I can still remember 1225 South Independence. I think a lot of people know where 1225 Independence was. It was a lovely street. It had a park right across the street from where we were. And in those days, if it got hot, like it does in Chicago, we couldn't stay in the apartment. We would take a blanket and a pillow and go across the street, and we'd sleep in the park. We could actually sleep in the park, and nobody would bother us. Every once in a while, my mother would come out, and she'd have something to eat or something to drink, or that kind of life that, anyone would really love. I remember when I wasn't much older than that, there was a great prize fight. Memories. Joe Louis was fighting at that time for the honor of the United States. He was fighting the great German fighter who had held the world's record, and everyone on the West Side was interested in that fight. And we only had one radio, and it was one of those radios that you didn't have to have electricity. The kids could make their own radios by getting a cigar box and putting things together, whatever it was. And we were all in the park, and my father had said he was so thirsty. It was a very hot night, and he said, "Rose, you got to get me a glass of water. I don't think I can stand the heat anymore." And I said, "But the fight is going to go on." He says, "It's going to be 13 rounds. It's going to go on forever. You will come out here and you will see here when the fight does." I go in and I come back and they're cheering their heads off. The fight's all over. He had knocked him out in the first round, which was against all the rules. You couldn't have a man like Joe Louis representing the United States fight the best one in Germany. So most of us felt we were living in a place that we really loved. I was telling Paul that we also had the first potato chips. Now everyone knows what potato chips are like, right? Well, we had a little piece of land between two stores on Roosevelt Road. It was right there across the street from Holman. And he had brought a pot that he could put on a burner and have hot, hot oil going all day long. And he had a kind of a board that he made slivers of potatoes, like the potato chips you have. And he would throw them into the hot oil and take it up out of the hot oil and put it in wax paper that you rolled up. And we would walk down Roosevelt Road for a nickel. You'd have the first potato chips that we ever had. So that's another thing that was at Lawndale that people never got credit for. And Paul took me past the fountain, and that brought out just about the biggest one that we had. Everyone knows in Chicago we have the fountain downtown at Grant Park. I still call it Grant Park. And it lights up and it has water. Well, we didn't have lights up, but we had water coming out of that fountain. And it was a place that a lot of kids kind of used as their kind of romantic place to take a girlfriend and walk around the fountain and look at the water and see what it had, the kind of feeling that you have, like, and we would throw pennies in it too, the way they did in Italy in their fountain. And that was our kind of throwing the pennies away and knowing that you were going to marry the girl you brought to the fountain. But the biggest thing that I remember about the fountain was that it also was right across the street of where Martin Luther King lived when he was in Chicago. And I had grown by that time, but I was in that apartment. And there are a lot of pictures taken of Martin Luther King looking out the window towards the fountain. And I remember we were there before he brought his wife there, when he first got the apartment. And it was pretty run down. It wasn't the apartment that it was later. And all they had there were a couple of mattresses that somebody had brought and put out, and they slept on the mattresses. And they had a couple of orange cartons that were from grocery stores or fruit stores, and we sat on those, as we talked. And he talked about why he had come to Chicago and what he wanted to achieve in Chicago. And it was something that I realized I'd gone through a lot of changes at Lawndale. I went from the time when I came to Lawndale and I thought everyone on this earth was Jewish because I was Jewish, and all of the people around me were Jewish, and that this was what the whole world was, like everyone thinks of their own community, to the point where I saw major changes of when the Jewish community started to leave Lawndale and go to other communities. And I became part of being very concerned of why I had to leave this community merely because other people were coming into the community. It was never anything I wanted to. And I realized that this didn't have to happen. If people really thought of themselves as more, that all people want the same thing that I wanted. It didn't matter whether I was Jewish or whether I was white or whether I was black or green or any other color. Throughout history, you found that people went to different countries because they wanted to make a better life for themselves. My father came here from Russia to make a better life and not fight for the Tsar in Russia. My schoolmates at Marshall High School went into World War II because they wanted to make this a better life for the people that were living in our life. And that everyone that were making changes, they're going to be changes. changes are going to happen to everybody. If you didn't change, you just deteriorate. We only have a finite time that we're on Earth, and why not make it the best time that we can? But we sometimes think that we're going to be the only ones left, that maybe other people will die, but I'm never going to do it. I don't want to go that route. And you find out, yeah, you're going to do it, you're going to go down that route, you're going to be the best person you can. And if you didn't leave and you didn't learn what other people were like when they were coming up. So I learned that at Lawson. And I don't think many of you even remember there was a Lawson Elementary School. It was the largest elementary school in Lawndale at that time. And it no longer is. We never thought that would ever leave. You remember Lawson, huh?
I remember stories about Lawson.
That's what it had to be. Yeah.
Kind of close to where
Yeah.
Walgreens is now.
And it had everything. It had a field house, it had a playground, it had everything you would want a school to be, and it disappeared. Other things in our life, came and went. But we didn't have to lose the feeling of humanity that's built into all of us. I really think that there's a piece of us that says, I'm a human being, I belong to other human beings, and it's up to all of us to be part of whatever the road that we're going to be taking. And I'm very happy to be with you today. I'm always going to say I was a member of the Lawndale community, because that's part of my being. And I learned a lot. I hope that you do too. And that you don't let people intimidate you into thinking that whatever is going to happen next is going to be something you're going to be sorry about. I used to, when I got to be a mother, worry a lot about my kids. I thought, if I got a call at 12 o'clock at night, I would answer, what happened? And they just got tired of, maybe I have good news for you, Mom. Maybe you will just say, hello, what happened to you today? And it was so artificial with me because, yes, the first time I picked up the phone, I want to say, what happened? Now I've got to say, if you call me at night, I'll say, what nice thing happened to you today? We can all change. And I hope that maybe you'll remember some of the things, and I'll get to know you better. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Paul.
I'm putting you guys on the spot by being on the camera all the time. You can take your seats if you want, but it looks cool you sitting back here. Okay. So we're blessed with being able to go back to the 1930s and 40s. I'm looking around. No.
50s and 60s.
Can anybody do the 50s and 60s? How about you? No, I didn't think so. Okay. Well, I was born in 1952, so 10 years later, I was 12 years old, 62. So in the 60s, I was a teenager. I graduated grammar school in 65. I went to Corkery over in a little village. Well, let me go back. I went to Lawson when I was first born. We lived at 1311 South Holman. But when I turned 7, we moved over to Cermak and Costner, and I started going to Mason. The Civil Rights Movement came along, and in order to satisfy the demands of the Civil Rights Movement, they wanted to integrate. So they split my street down the middle, and everybody on my side of the street went to Corkery and Little Village in order to integrate that school. Graduated in 65, went to Farragut. Graduated in 65 and went to Farragut. And the church I went to was Lawndale Presbyterian Church. Now it's on Ogden and Millard. Now that's Harmony Church. The same thing happened in that church happened in North Lawndale. We were my parents' generation was the strength of that church. My parents' generation was the strength of the community. When we got old enough, when the teenagers got old enough, we left. We left North Lawndale, and all of the stuff that we could have contributed, we didn't. And so our parents grew older. So our church started to fail. Our community started to fail. Then I came back in the late 80s, early 90s. Stayed for a little while and left again, and then came back again. And I've been back ever since. I guess what I'm trying to say from that story is, you guys, you young guys, I hope that when you go off and you're starting your lives out in the world, and you've gone to school, and you've gone to college, all of you are going to college, right? Yes. Okay. And you've gone to college and you come back and you've got these great jobs. Please come back to North Lawndale and help rebuild North Lawndale. We need you. Okay, so let's see, I was 14 years old when Dr. King moved to 16th and Hamlin, 1550 South Hamlin, I believe it was. And then I was 16 years old when he was assassinated, and I had to go downtown. That's the night of the riots, the first night of the riots. And I'm going down the Pink Line, and I look out to the north, and I see a string of red fire going down 16th Street, a string of fire going down Roosevelt, and way off in the distance, a string of fire going down Madison. Somehow, after I left whatever I was doing downtown, I got dropped off, and the person taking me home was afraid to go into our area, so he dropped me off on Madison. So there I was in the middle of the riots, people running around with TVs and couches and everything else. So let's see, I made it home, obviously. The Vietnam War was going full blast. My brother was 5 years older than me, so his generation was being drafted left and right. My brother went into the Air Force while I was still a teenager. We were going out to when we would party. Unfortunately, we would go to the South Side. There was a place on Wabash called the Times Square. That was the place to be. Let's see, what else? That's enough about me. Anybody from the 80s, 90s, 2000?
I could talk a little bit. Just real quick, as a youth worker, working with young people in the 88. I'm Kimberly George, and I've worked in North Lawndale since 1988, November of 1988. I moved from a small town in Indiana and moved to didn't move to North Lawndale. I live in Oak Park, but started working in North Lawndale and haven't stopped yet. One more Dr. King story regarding the riots. The last 9 years I've worked at Chicago Youth Centers and ABC, and I was on, that's on 13th and Holman, 13th Place and Holman. And there's a history book about Chicago Youth Centers, and it used to be called ABC, American Brothers Commonwealth? American Boys Club, okay. So they called it ABC. We called it ABC, but we didn't really know what it stood for at the time. And then they changed it now to the Sidney Epstein Youth Center. Anyways, the riots were going on, kind of like as Paul had described, and what Chicago Youth Centers did was to keep kids off the street and keep them from rioting or getting mixed up in all of that. They had a basketball game. They started a basketball game, and the game actually went on for 3 days. It never stopped for 3 days because they were just keeping the kids off the streets. And so the gym's still there, and I used to spend a lot of time in the gym just reminiscing and thinking about that. But yeah, so it was a 3-day longest basketball game. The center was a little bit at risk because of all the looting and all of that, but community people kind of went around the building. And I also worked at the YMCA, and I know they did that at the YMCA. Since those were safe places, those were kind of spared. So it was really kind of cool. Those were spared by like a lot of the parents whose kids were in the gym and playing. So that's, I guess, my Martin Luther King story. It's just so awesome that this history is here, and we do got to keep sharing it because so many people don't know about it. When I moved here, I was like, what? Dr. King lived in this neighborhood? He walked on these sidewalks, or, all the other people as well. Golden Meyer, I think, had a house in North Lawndale. Yeah. And yeah, I could keep going on about that. But when I came in the late 80s, and I've kind of been here ever since. I remembered, and I'll just tell this story because it's about teens a little bit. I always work with teenagers. So the first outreach that we did with teenagers was we did summer jobs. And that's before After School Matters. So the summer workers got checks from the city of Chicago. So just imagine trying to employ kids, get all their paperwork, get their documents, have the city write a check out to them, to each of the kids. But we were at Dvorak. We had a play lot at Dvorak. We have 40 children, 40 to 50 kids, teenagers working on that play lot outside. We're trying to find work for them to do. A lot of them washed our cars because we had to find something for them to do. But they ran play lots for the younger kids. And then there was another one that was over there by Farm on Ogden. It was called the IBT play lot. There's a basketball court back there. And we had another 60 teenagers, 14 to 18-year-olds over there. But just imagine, we can't see that anymore. That many like teens in one group or young people in one group outside, working together. So that's a big, now when you see a group of teenagers together, everyone's kind of like a little bit ill at ease. So we got to get to where we're starting to, figure out how people can mingle safely and participate in outdoor play areas for kids. So that's my story. I'll leave it at that. So that's 80s, 90s, and on through.
Okay, so, well, you made me think of some stuff. So when I was in high school, as a matter of fact, it turns out that we had the exact opposite problem that we're having now with our schools. Our schools are shutting down now, and one of the reasons they're giving is low attendance, that we don't have enough population. Well, when I was in high school in the 60s, we had too many people. We were overcrowded, and so they took trailers and parked them on the school lot, and those became our classrooms. And because I don't remember his first name, I don't remember his first name though. Do you remember? Yeah, the superintendent of the schools was Superintendent Willis. I can't remember his first name, so they called them Willis wagons. The student body, and you guys, you teenagers, this is what we expect you to do, fighting for the right thing. We decided to protest against the Willis wagons. We were tired of that. And if you go over to Farragut now, you'll see a brand new building attached to the old building. That building came out of our protest. My generation did that. What is your generation gonna do? Okay, we're gonna break it up a little bit. There's something that I've been doing whenever I'm with a group. As you know, North Lawndale is 150 years old this year, so we're going around and we're getting the groups to say happy birthday North Lawndale. Can you guys do that? Can you guys do that?
Yes.
Okay. I'm sorry?
We normally do that at the end of the
Yeah, but I don't want to. So One of the things we're going to do is bury a 50-year. Okay. Yeah. Okay. One of the things we're going to do is bury a 50-year time capsule. How old are you? 10? So you'll be 60 years old when this capsule opens. How old are you? 15? You'll be 2 years younger than I am now when this capsule opens. So we want you guys to be on camera saying happy birthday North Lawndale. And then that video with everything else is going to go into our time capsule. So in 2069, we can talk to them. You're going to grow up your whole lives knowing that there's a special day coming up. All of you, there's a special day coming up, and people are going to be turning to you when you're 50, 60 years old. So do right with your lives so you can be proud when all those cameras are on you in your later years. Okay, so I'm going to have somebody say what this is. I'm sorry. Very good. So we're going to seal this capsule on February 26th. North Lawndale was incorporated in Chicago on February 27th, 1869. So February 26th is the last day of our 150 years. And that's when we're going to seal the capsule. We're not going to bury it yet because we also have to build a community gateway, a big arch or something for the community. And the time capsule will go there. Until then, it's going to be sealed up and locked away on public display. We haven't decided exactly where it's going to be yet, but it'll be on public display. So very good question. So what I'm going to do is get somebody who wants to say what today's date is, where we are, and what we're doing. One of you guys. Okay, then you. Okay, so she's going to say today's date, and make sure you include the year because that's the most important part. In 50 years, they're going to want to know that this happened in 2019. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, everybody come up. Okay, everybody.
Just the kids.
Everybody come in so that so we can
You say it.
get everybody on the camera.
So she'll say the date, and then you're going to say where we're at, what we're doing.
We won't be able to see you at all. Step up here. Step up next to the drum. Maybe you'll teach you how to play the drum.
Today's date is Wednesday, December 18, 2019.
We're at the Firehouse Community Arts Center in North Lawndale.
Celebrating the youth of North Lawndale.
Happy birthday, North Lawndale!
Thank you.
Good job.
I've been helping out the Sesquicentennial Committee with a couple of these storytelling events. And we specifically invited a number of speakers to come and sort of tell their stories. And I'd like for them to come up, introduce themselves, and go through the forum. If possible, I would love for the 3 students from McGee Challenge to come up one by one and introduce yourselves and tell your stories.
Hello. Hello, I'm Dreria. I'm one one of the youths of not only North Lawndale, but also McGee. I was born here, but I was raised until 8 years old in Gary, Indiana. So you can imagine how hard it was to adjust to like the loud city life and everyone, when like I was used to quiet. You had to walk at least 3 blocks to get to any other kids to play with. So it was kind of used to me like being by myself and like just siblings. So like the moment I moved to the city, it was all thrown at me. Like, you have to make friends. Like, if you don't know nobody, you won't have fun. Like, you need friends to have fun. Like, you couldn't be a shut-in, which unfortunately I somehow found a way to be a shut-in. But hopefully with McGee, I can not only improve North Lawndale as a youth, but it helped North Lawndale, but I can also like put myself out there and like make friends and like get to know people. I really want to go out there, like, but it's just like, it's also like, oh, it's gross, people are scary, like, at the same time. But I know that, like, in my 20s and 30s or something, I know I'm gonna have to be a job and get a job and stuff, but whether I like it or not, I'm gonna have to interact and be with people, even if I don't want to. So, like, McGee and, like, being here is like kind of my push out there into the world, and I hope it not only help my social skills, but it also help me with helping my community be better.
Hi, my name is Ledla. I've been living in North Lawndale for my whole life. I was born in North Lawndale. My family, I have worked in North Lawndale for a year. I have worshiped in North Lawndale in churches and stuff. I lost my father due to gun violence in North Lawndale. I am proud to have contributed to making my summer better by finding North Lawndale. North Lawndale, which is in a Memphis challenge. My hopes and dreams for North Lawndale is that all young people get off the streets and find them something to be in, like North Lawndale in a life. In 2020 and beyond, my wishes for North Lawndale is all young people have a job and not on the streets.
Good job.
Hi, my name is Taisha. I'm 14, born and raised in North Lawndale community. I am a 12-year eye cancer patient. I lost my big brother to the streets at the age of 8. I almost lost my little brother and my friend at the park where I go. And I went through a life or death situation. I worked at McGee for 6 months now, and I hope a miracle will happen to North Lawndale in the upcoming years and the world of the youth people in that future. And 2020 and beyond, I wish the North Lawndale will be a happy and peaceful place to live. And happy birthday, happy 150th birthday, North Lawndale.
Together forever. If you're gonna do it, be
I just told him to stop. I didn't want to do it. You said you okay.
okay. He'll do it. Then come sit down.
Hello, my name is Marquel Noel. I go to a school named Kipperson Middle School. I am 11 years old. I'm in 6th grade. And my background is that when I was like 10 years old, right? Yeah. When my grandma died, right? When my grandma died, she passed away of cancer, and my granddad, he had died when I was 11, and I was 11 when that happened, and he died over having a stroke, I think it was, and now I'm becoming a young man thanks to my mom and my dad and my brother and my sister to support me, and I'm starting to love to play sports and be a drummer, and I hope other people will succeed. Thank you.
Wow, he just said a couple of things that made me think. 50 years from now, will cancer still be a thing? And 50 years from now, will gun violence still be a thing? Hopefully, when they see this in 2069, they'll be scratching their heads about what was going on back then, because things would have changed by now. And you guys are going to change it. Okay. Ah.
Hi, my name is Mariah. I am 10 years old, and I recently just went to CYC, which is on 13th and Holman. It's a really good center. It teaches you about life, how to behave. It helps you show your true personality. It gives you time to meet new people, show off your new things and things that you can do. It's like a big house all together. It's really like everybody is brother, sister. It's like it's just the whole family in one big, giant apartment.
What are your hopes for
My
2020?
My hopes for 2020 is to get straight A's, try to skip a grade at least, do better for Lawndale, maybe even help out some people get nicer homes, get people to start learning more about their community, their life, their everything they want to do for their life, and help other people start off their lives.
Oh, you got another one?
Sure. Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm Apriel Campbell. I am a resident here in North Lawndale, and I was born in North Lawndale. Unfortunately, my grandparents thought that it would be a better idea if we relocated to Oak Park. So I moved to Oak Park, I think, when I was maybe 1, and we lived there until I was like 14. And then we were faced with homelessness, so we ended up moving back to North Lawndale when I was like 14, into a property that my grandparents owned on 16th and Christiana, because we basically had nowhere else to go. So we were going to be there temporarily because my grandparents, again, they were very frustrated with the violence in the community. They weren't sure if it would be viable for us to be here. So we ended up doing an extended stay. And my grandparents, they've always been very active in the community. My grandma was like a precinct captain. So we stuck around, and I put roots down here, went to high school in North Lawndale, And currently, I have a position in the community where the focus is community engagement. I'm the assistant director of civic engagement for the School of the Art Institute. And I don't know, I guess something that's probably interesting about myself that I would say has been transferred from like adolescence, youth to like adulthood is my ideology around entrepreneurship and there being a million ways to $1 million. I think that there's no shortage of money being printed. So I think, you know, depending on what your focus or whatever you have a passion for, if you do that well enough, then you'll be able to reach the heights that you'd like to reach and achieve, you know, whatever salary that you'd like to equate with that. And yeah, I think that's it, really.
All right.
Anybody graduate from Marshall?
Audrey wants to talk about her team.
Shortly, just for a few minutes. Actually, so I moved into North Lawndale when I was about, my name's Audrey. I moved into North Lawndale when I was about 8 years old. We lived on 16th and Central Park, and I started my schooling at Dvorak School. I think I was in about 3rd grade. Then from there, my mother bought a house, so we lived on 21st and Spalding. And from there, I went to Crown School. But in the midst of all of like going to school, like I remember going to the YMCA. I took swimming lessons there. I played volleyball there. And actually, I have 4 siblings, so I have one brother that's right under me, so he close to me, so that scenario is good for us. But the other 3, I think all of them was born in North Lawndale. All of them went to Crown, like all of us graduated from Crown School, except for my brother that's under me. He graduated from Whitney Young, the academic center. So, I mean, from there, I remember like moving all around the neighborhood, going to Crown School. Back then, we had a lot of things like academic bowls where we went to different schools and we went up against other schools to see who was the smartest. I think like growing up, even summer jobs, like in the summer, I always worked summer jobs and it was at Dvorak. That's where our play lot was at. So the bigger kids would always watch the smaller kids. So for me, I think I have a lot of fond memories from North Lawndale because I spent a lot of time in the community, you know, getting to know my neighbors, like everybody I know from grammar school, I still see a lot of them, you know, and now I work in the community. I work at the Restorative Justice Court, which is a court for 18 to 26-year-olds, and what we do over there is we have circles with them, and we help them to try to figure out like what they want to do with their lives. We use restorative practices, so we help them to think about like what is it that they really want for themselves. It's not about, you know, when you think about young people, it's always adultism, adults telling them like, we want you to do X, Y, and Z. But in this court, we want them to think for themselves and to figure out like what it is in life that they want to do and how can they, you know, they cause harm to the community. Some of them, they shooters, you know, they sold drugs. But for them to figure out like now, what can they give back to community in order to repair the harm that they did? So for me, I think going full circle, like when I went to high school, I went to Lane Tech, so I didn't go to high school in the community. I went to DePaul College. So being able to go out the neighborhood and then to come back in and give people some of the stuff, you know, that people gave me, because when I grew up, it was a village. It was everybody, you know, watching out for kids, making sure that kids weren't standing on street corners. Now, it's like you see a lot of kids out there, but we don't understand the ramifications of why they out there. And part of it is us trying to figure that out and giving them, you know, the nurturing and the love and the attention. Really, sometimes it's just presence that they need in order for them to be better in community. And if we do more of that, then we'll have less of the gun violence, less of them, you know, selling drugs. So having, you know, like all the kids in the room thinking about that, like you've been a victim of gun violence, you know about it, but how can you help, you know, reshape that narrative? Think about like what you can give the kids that they not getting at their home that maybe your mama giving to you. So, and when I work with people, that's what I like to think about, like what can I do to help them, to help themselves. Cause us, thinking for them is not the way to go anymore. Like us just telling people what they need to do, treating people like cattle, it's not working. So we gotta find out like what that common bond is. And I think tonight, like all of us in this room, we found a common bond of youth. Like we wanna hear what y'all gotta say. We wanna figure out like, what can y'all do? Like, how can you be a part of this? So think about that.
Oh, cool. All right. There you go.
Hi, I'm Chaundra Dyke McGee, and what you guys don't know about me is I was originally born Chaundra Marquita Gillespie. So I was born in what I think is now known as Garfield Park. I was born at Bethany Hospital. And my first home was 3507 West Lexington, which is Lexington and St. Louis. My family still lived there, still owned that building. Tonight, my aunt, who is the original owner of that building, had a surgery and it went well. It went really great. But we remain in the community. My husband is from this community. When I was 5 years old, I was actually removed from my biological family. So I went through foster care. I was a MICFA Challenge kid in high school. At the age of 16, I moved back to North Lawndale and I lived at 3507 West Lexington. At 18, I went away to college and I went to Kentucky State University. And after finishing my bachelor's degree there, I decided to return home to Chicago to study grad school. There I studied criminal justice criminology with a concentration in women and gender studies. And I returned back to North Lawndale. At that time, I lived at 3926 West Polk Street, so that was like Polk and Pulaski. I had the opportunity to intern with the North Lawndale Employment Network while I was in grad school, and I realized that my purpose and my mission was to come back here in my community and serve. And so I've had the opportunity to do that. I still live on the west side of Chicago. I work on the west side of Chicago. My hope for North Lawndale 50 years from now is that I'm still in the community, for one, and that I am a part of opening this time capsule and I can see myself tell this story and hopefully my children be able to watch as well. But also that it's a beautiful, vibrant community and it's still our community and that we are a part of the process of developing it and that we get to actually reap the benefit of our labor here in North Lawndale. So happy 150th birthday, North Lawndale.
Anybody else? Come on.
Come on.
My name is Bobbie Steele, and I'm from Mississippi originally. I came to Chicago in the 50s, and I lived with my brother. I came to find work so I could finish college. I had 2 years of college when I came, and I was committed to doing the other 2 years here so I could work. But in the meantime, I ran into a handsome young man who said, "You're gonna be my wife." And every time he saw me, he would say that. And I would say, "Well, you're nuts. I don't know you." And he said, "But I know you." Anyway, my father lived in Evanston. So I told my father about this man that was always saying that to me. And he said, "I want to meet him." So I got him together. My father said, "I think that'll make you a nice husband." Husband? But anyway, after we talked for a while, we did get married. And we had 6 children that all grew up right here in North Lawndale. And in the interim, I went to school. I finished school and started teaching. And I taught school at Paderewski School down here. I don't know where it is. But anyway, I taught down there for a few years. Later, I went to Henson Elementary School, and I taught there for a few years. And while I was teaching there, Harold Washington was running for mayor. And for somehow or another, he got hold of my name. And he said, "I want you to run with me for alderman of this ward, 24th Ward." And foolish as I was, no money, no experience in the political arena, except helping other people who passed out their literature who were running for office. I committed myself to do it. And I began to go from house to house. And I probably knew somebody that lived on every street in North Lawndale. If I didn't know them, I knew somebody who knew them. So, because we were going to get Harold elected. He got elected, but I didn't. Shame on me. But anyway, next election was coming up, was a county election. Cook County, and then there was a group that I belonged to called Cook County Democratic Women. They were mostly downtown on the north side. So somebody said, I think we should run Bobbie Steele for Cook County Board in her area, in her ward, because people there already know her. I ran, and I won. I was the first woman elected to the county board from the west side of Chicago. I served in that capacity several more years, stopped teaching, and worked on the county board as a county commissioner representing this area for 20 years. Then, the president of the county board took sick, he died. So I went on Channel 11 one night to talk about his health, what state of health he was in before he passed away. And Cameron said, well, who's going to take his place? Another commissioner was on the station with me that night. He said, Bobbie Steele. I said, oh, wow. But anyway, women in this city got together overnight and said, we're going to run you for president of the county board. Now that's frightening. Cook County is the second largest county in America. It's larger than 19 states. $3.2 billion budget when I was there. It's more than that now, I think it's about 3.6 billion. But anyway, they got together and started moving through the community. And of course, most of the younger people knew me because I had been in the school system. And I was very active in my church, Mount Hebron Baptist Church there on Douglas in St. Louis. I worked there for about 25 years with the youth department. And have been very active, like some of you, in the community, when working with block clubs and different activities that were held in the community. So, as it turned out, election day came, and I was elected unanimously by the Board of Commissioners to be the first woman president of Cook County. From North Lawndale. So I would like to appeal to all the youth in this room. You can make it, regardless of what the goal is. Just keep pressing forward, and you can make it. Thank you so much.
Wow, Bobbie, I didn't know the first part of that she was the first woman elected to the board. I did know that she was the first woman to be president of the board. And I also knew that she spent her entire professional life here in North Lawndale, raising her family. She is a North Lawndalean. Thank you. And I want to thank, Rose Meyer. On our way over here, she was talking about Dave's Hot Dogs. Dave's Hot Dogs is the oldest Vienna hot dog stand in Chicago, and it's ours. And then, so to the people of 2069, look around. I hope that you guys are having a big celebration, and a lot of people have turned out. So while you're all sitting there, look around you. If you see a 117-year-old guy sitting off to the side, that's me. But look around for all the 60, 70-year-old people in the crowd. That's the children that you saw talking tonight. And they're gonna do us proud. Rose?
The reason I was asking if there was anybody here from Marshall is because we always sang the Marshall song. And I went to Marshall when I was 14 years old in 1941. And our song was, and I can't sing it worth it out, but it was always, Marshall, we are loyal to you. Marshall, we will ever be true. None can blame us, none can change us. We're all for you, Marshall High. And to this day, if you went to Marshall High, you still belong to it. So we're all still part of graduated in 44, and I came back and taught there in 1963 and stayed there for many years. And every year since I was a teacher, we have a reunion of Marshall teachers that we on Columbus Day, because it's the day off from school. We found that the first day off from school, we didn't know what to do with ourselves. We went out to lunch, and we've been doing it for over 50 years. And this year, the Chicago Defender had our alumni on their front page, that these teachers had a reunion at Marshall High School in 1960. We started in 1962, and we still come back every year. So it doesn't go out of your head. If you ever were part of this, it's part of your life for the rest of your life. And it isn't that you were there in the 20s or 30s, you're there early. And that was what we all felt. We didn't have as many teachers showing up. Many of us had body off. But as few as there are, we will continue to meet at Marshall and have our luncheon for another year. And that was what I wanted to leave.
I guess you've all noticed, and this is the first time I've really seen this in all of our speaking events, that one person telling the story motivates other people to tell their stories too. We had people get up today who've never spoken, although they did the many things. So thank you, thank all of you. And thank you 2069 for digging us up.
All right.
And thank you.